Welcome to the Grateful Living Podcast.
Hi, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Grateful Living Podcast. So today's episode is based on something a sales mentor used to say in various different meetings, and I never really understood what he meant by it at the time. It took a while for it to land. He used to say, "You are your biggest asset. Invest in things that increase your share price." And I remember the first time I heard it, and in my head I was thinking, share price, what are you talking about? But what he meant wasn't financial in the way that we think about it usually. He wasn't saying you're a stock on the market in a literal sense. He was talking about value. Your value, your capacity, your skill set, your mindset, your ability to show up in the world and actually offer something meaningful. And the more I've grown, the more I realise how true that actually is. Because if you strip everything back, the only thing you truly have to offer in this life is you. Not what you own, not your job title, not your circumstances, but you. Your thinking, your energy, your emotional capacity, your knowledge, your resilience, your ability to stay grounded when things get hard, your ability to communicate, to create, to build, to connect, that is an asset. And the wild thing is, most of us are never really taught to see ourselves in that way. We're taught to invest in things outside of ourselves. We're taught to think about houses and savings accounts and pensions and properties and investments. And don't get me wrong, those things matter. Of course they do. But the thing nobody really teaches us is the thing determining your ability to build any of that is you. Your internal world dictates your external world far more than we like to admit. And I always come back to this idea of assets because honestly, most people already understand assets in business terms. An asset is something that increases in value over time, something that produces return, something that strengthens your position. But what if we applied that same thinking to ourselves? Because most people, again, if we're speaking honestly, are kind of investing in things that depreciate them rather than appreciate them. We invest time in habits that drain us. We invest energy into relationships that deplete us. We invest attention into things that don't grow us. And then we wonder why we feel stuck or flat or like we're not moving forward in life. And I don't say that from a place of judgment at all, because I've been there too. There have been versions of me that were so focused on surviving life that I wasn't really thinking about building anything. I wasn't thinking about future me. I was literally just trying to get through the day. And I think a lot of people are there in some way, shape or form. But there comes a point where something starts to shift. There comes a point where you start asking slightly different questions, not just how do I get through this, but who am I becoming while I'm going through this? And that question changes everything. Because once you start seeing yourself as something that is either increasing or decreasing in value based on your choices, you start choosing differently. Now, I want to pause here for a second because I actually love that bit I just said about how we think about assets as houses, investments, savings, accounts. And what if it's you? What if the most important asset you will ever manage in your entire life is you? Because everything else flows from that. Your career flows from that. Your relationships, money, health, they all flow from that. Even your business and your opportunities, your experiences, all of it is filtered through the version of you that is holding it. And this is where it gets really interesting for me, because when we look at the psychology and the neuroscience, this idea actually has a lot of weight behind it. Now, we know that through research on neuroplasticity that the brain is constantly changing. Every time you learn something new, you are literally forming new neural pathways. You're not just gaining information, you are physically reshaping your brain. And that matters because it means you're not fixed. You're not stuck as the version of you that exists right now. You are in constant development, which also means your share price in this metaphor is not fixed either. It is always either increasing or stagnating depending on what you're doing with your time, your energy, and your attention. And this is where people like Dr. Gabor Mate really changed the way I look at things, because his work shows us that so much of our behavior isn't actually about discipline or motivation. It's about survival patterns. It's about how the nervous system has adapted to keep us safe. So when someone struggles to invest in themselves, or struggles to believe that they are worth it, or struggles to take action, it's not laziness, it's often protection. And that completely reframes everything. Because it means growth isn't just about trying harder, it's about becoming safe enough internally to expand. And then you look at someone like Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, who literally wrote about how trauma is stored in the body, not just the mind. And suddenly you realize that your ability to show up in your life, to take opportunities, to invest in yourself, to back yourself is not just mindset. It's nervous system capacity, it's embodied safety, it's regulation. Which is why two people can be given the exact same opportunity and one will expand into it and the other will shrink away from it. Not because one is more capable, but because one has more internal capacity available in that moment. And this is where investing in yourself becomes so much deeper than just courses or coaching or learning a skill. Although those things absolutely matter, but it's also therapy. It's also resting. It's also healing and learning how to regulate your emotions and learning how to sit with discomfort without abandoning yourself. It's also learning how to trust yourself again. And I think this is why people, successful people, in whatever field you look at, almost always invest heavily in themselves. Not just financially successful people, but athletes, creatives, leaders, entrepreneurs, they all have coaches. They all have mentors. And they all have people around them who help them see what they can't see themselves. And I always think about that quote from Warren Buffett, who said something along the lines of, the best investment you can make is in yourself. Because he understands compounding. And this is the thing most people miss. We understand compounding in money, but we don't always understand it in identity. Every small investment you make in yourself compounds. Every book you read, every conversation you have, every therapy session, every coaching call, every time you challenge a belief, every time you learn a new skill, every time you choose differently, even when it's uncomfortable, it all compounds. And over time, it doesn't just change what you do, it changes who you are. I think about my own life here as well, because I've lived this in real time. There were versions of me who didn't invest in myself at all, and I stayed stuck in the same emotional patterns, the same relationships, the same beliefs about what I was capable of. And then there were moments where I did invest, where I said yes to training, yes to learning, yes to coaching, yes to healing, yes to building skills I didn't even feel ready for. And every single time, even when it felt scary, my value, if we're using that metaphor, it increased. Not in an ego way, but in a capacity way, in a I can hold more of my life now kind of way. And that's really what this is all about. It's not about becoming better than anyone else. It's about becoming more of yourself, more resourced, grounded, capable, open, more you. And I think if we zoom out, the real question becomes, what are you currently investing in? Because whether we realize it or not, we're always investing in something. We are investing either in growth or investing in stagnation. We're either investing in expansion or we're investing in protection. We're either investing in the future versions of ourselves or we are reinforcing the current one. And neither is right or wrong, but they do lead to very different outcomes. So I want to leave you with this today. If you genuinely saw yourself as your biggest asset, if you really believed that your share price increases through your growth, your healing, your learning, and your self-investment, what would you start doing differently? Would you finally book the thing? Would you finally learn the skill? Would you finally work on the belief? Would you finally invest in the coach, that the therapy, the course, the environment that actually stretches you. Because I think most people already know what they need to do. The gap is rarely knowledge, it's self-worth. And that's something we can change slowly, gently, over time, through repetition, investment, and becoming. And that leads me into something I've been working on called Becoming Her. Because at the end of the day, this whole idea isn't about external success, it's about internal alignment. It's about becoming the version of you who already exists underneath all of the doubt, and then learning how to live from that place consistently. If this episode resonated with you and you feel like you're in a season where you're ready to invest in yourself differently, I would love for you to look into Becoming Her. It's a space where we work on identity, nervous system safety, self-worth, emotional regulation, and actually building the internal foundations that allow everything else in your life to shift. And if not, just take this as a reminder today that you're not stuck, you're not fixed, and you are absolutely your biggest asset. So invest wisely, not just in the things outside of you, but in you. Always in you. Thanks for listening. Until next time, take good care.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at _the_grateful_living.